Okay, so I've just begun recording, and like I say, also what happens if you do decide to, if you want to participate and share in the chat box, that doesn't come up on the recording, just so you're aware, and I don't mention anybody's name. So yeah, welcome. So welcome. The next 45 minutes to 60 minutes is now some time for you to start connecting in with your cycle, what I call your feminine flow. And this morning, what I encourage is for you to get curious, because I may start to present things in a way that could be different to how you've heard or understood before. So I invite you to get curious, have an open mind. And if you find yourself going, well, is this true? Is this right? I encourage you to come to the question of, is this helpful? And that's a really good starting place when you're especially coming into anything that might be new for you, that then allows you to come to that space of curiosity, but without some of the other judgment stuff that can start to come in. So it allows you to be open and just connecting in with yourself around that. Is this helpful? As we go through today, what I'm going to be sharing with you is starting to explore a little bit about what is your feminine flow or your cycle. Then we're going to go through and start to explore how this might be impacting your life, really, how this might be showing up, maybe positively, perhaps less positively, what are the challenges there. And then I'm going to be taking you through a process to help shift some of the stuck energies and emotions around your menstrual cycle that might be causing you some feeding into the difficulties, but also keeping you stuck and not knowing what to take as your next steps. And then I'm going to be finishing off with sharing 5 of my top tips to help keep you balanced throughout the month. So who am I? How did this come about? My name is Tara Palaki, for those of you who don't know me, and I'm the founder of the Feminine Space. And a lot of the work that I do nowadays is to support women on their fertility journeys, really to bring in that energy of nourishment, nurturing and support that can be sadly really missing on a very unique time in a woman's life. And this all came out, and this morning's sharings all started to come out because as I personally went into my fertility journey, I began to realize how little I knew about my body, and the stuff that I did know wasn't particularly helpful to my experience of being a woman. And so I suffered for years. My whole life of having periods has been a struggle and a challenge. And, you know, when I used to go to the doctors, the only options that I was ever given were around taking the pill, which really didn't agree with me, or because I suffered with really heavy periods, I would also then be given the opportunity, offered iron, and the iron that came across the counter actually made me feel really sick, really nauseous. So I soon stopped going to the doctors around my cycle because, you know, the message seemed to be, these are your options, and they didn't work for me. So I felt like, well, I'm pretty much on my own with this. And then about 5 years ago, I started to do more investigatory work. And I began to understand that actually a lot of how I've been shown or told how to work with my cycle was at best unhelpful, at worst pretty harmful. And so that's why I've made it part of my mission, as it were, is to start offering out some education that as women we can really start to apply and start to connect with our bodies in a very different way to perhaps how we have been doing. And I think there's a real need for this. You know, anytime I do this work with women and start to talk about cycles and start to talk about periods, you know, there's so many questions because there is so much suffering out there. And given that half the population are women and that we have roughly around 450 periods a year in our lifetime, it seems really sad to me. So, you know, this is a much bigger issue than what we can solve right here, right now. But this is going to serve as a really great introduction for you starting to connect in with your cycle. And as for that little bit around learning to love your feminine flow, okay, I had to call this workshop something, this webinar something. For some of you today, you may be in such a place that actually this is to learn to love your cycle after it's caused you grief or problems and suffering. That might be a step too far. But how about then learning to understand your cycle and perhaps even like certain aspects? If you can do the love, amazing. If that feels too far out of reach, then perhaps that little middle step of understanding and therefore also maybe beginning to like bits. How does that sound? Give me a thumbs up if that works for you. Great, amazing. Okay, so just gonna have a little sip of drink. Let's get into this. What is your cycle? What is your feminine flow? So feminine flow is the name I've given for your monthly cycle. And the reason why I'm not just focusing on periods is because they're one aspect, but the whole month has such a key role in what shows up around your experience month in, month out. And I want to introduce you, we're going to start more at the sciencey bit, and then I'm going to take you more into the experience bit. But what I'd like to introduce to you today is this particular chart. So this is a chart of two really key hormones that do a dance throughout the month. So this is day 1 of your cycle. That's day 28 if you had a standard cycle, but that may be day 23, that might be day 35, or anything in between. And this yellow that you can see here is a hormone called estrogen. And then this green that you can see here is a hormone called progesterone. And this line that you see down here is roughly around ovulation. So if we take this first hormone, estrogen. Oh, just a side note, we're focusing on these two hormones, but we are made up of hundreds of hormones. But these two have some really key roles in terms of our energy, our moods, our sort of brain capacity, how we show up each day. So to keep things nice and simple, I've just chosen to focus on those, but know that these are influenced by a much, much bigger, wider sphere of hormones. So this, coming back to these two, what I want to share with you is that estrogen, think of this being the hormone as like a builder. It helps build womb lining, but it also helps to build energy. Look at it starting to increase throughout the month. It builds energy, and with that comes a lot more confidence, as well as sort of mental clarity. It builds your coordination. It's as you get closer towards this peak, you generally feel good. These are some of the better times in your cycle. And you start to build estrogen as pretty much as soon as you come on, but you'll probably notice the effects of it building by about day 2, 3 of your cycle. And you'll start to increase towards this energy building. Then you ovulate and you can see that it starts to drop down. And this is then when we hand over a bit like on a baton race to this hormone called progesterone. And progesterone is the hormone that is the progestation hormone. And it comes into the body once you've ovulated. How amazing is this? We grow a gland each month that produces progesterone, or the main source of progesterone, and then it disappears again. I think the human body is amazing. Ladies, we are incredible when you start to look inside. But this hormone is the progestation hormone. So it tends to make us go a little bit slower, a bit steadier, and think about the things that you need to sort of progestate. You'll tend to be more alert in this part of your cycle in terms of to sights, sounds, smells, because our body will believe that it's pregnant at this point and will come into that protective phase. So you tend to be less risk averse here. Here you'll be more, but you also tend to be much more able to be emotionally intelligent in this part. Kind of makes sense when you think of some of the key things that you know, that mothering energy. But you can see we've also got some estrogen there as well. So we've got this really nice blend of energy as well. And then it begins to tailor off. You can see that it begins to drop down there. And it's this dropping down that then once it reaches certain levels will then start to trigger you to bleed. Now, that is a very simple biology lesson, but what does it mean to you? What that starts to mean is that over that month-long cycle, you can see you've got different hormones rising and falling. And that starts to have really big impacts on your energy, on your mood, even down to your cravings, your skin. You know, as you reach towards ovulation, your energy, don't quote me on this, but I've heard that it starts to bring all your features more symmetrical, because symmetry is something that's valued in another species. You know, if we're going back to this role of reproduction, that it starts to make your face more symmetrical so that you appear more attractive, to be able to attract a mate. I mean, it's just amazing what can start to go on within our bodies. But this is stuff that we might be aware that there's differences in our cycles. But one thing that I'm really beginning to learn through my own journey, and every woman that I've worked with, is that to really get to know your cycle has been sadly really tarnished by a lot of shame and a lot of the stuff, you know, we don't, certainly when I was growing up, we didn't really talk about periods. Thankfully, there's big movements around it now, but there's still a lot of discomfort around talking around periods. And there's still a lot of where we don't have a huge resource of language or information to know how to work with it. We pretty much know when we feel good and perhaps when we feel bad. But there's so much within this. Once you start to tune into, actually, you can start to create a much kinder relationship with yourself. But this dance is affected by so many things. And I know a number of you today would have been called here because of something going on in your body, because of some form of suffering. You might have been curious, but there's probably going to be some form of suffering that's led to you going, I need this workshop. It might be period pains, it might be PMT, any of these things, because this is so affected by so many things. So this will get affected by physically, if your body is lacking in the right nutrients, or it's not being given time to rest properly and replenish, if you keep trying to push through so that you've gone into physical exhaustion or overwhelm, or you have an exercise regime that takes more energy than it gives, or maybe your body isn't able to detoxify properly, like your liver, your bowels aren't working to the best of their ability, or you've got digestive issues. If you're stressed out, you know, that will start to have an impact on how those hormones show up in the body. Likewise, it can be a lack of stimulation to your womb area. You know, if you've got a desk job, for example, that can have an impact on your cycle. Or it might be you're emotionally got a lot going on. So Many of us have a love-hate relationship with our wombs. Just think how that can start to impact on your monthly cycle, especially if you know that you're coming up to that time of the month. If you're trying to conceive and you get in your period, or you've experienced loss, or actually you fear your period because it's going to be painful, then you can start to create some really strong resistance and stress throughout the month. Likewise, when we've got a lot going on emotionally, perhaps bereavement or a breakup, pandemic, that can also come out in our cycle and cause disruptions too. Maybe you know, when you start to think about sort of mental energy, if you tend to get caught up in your head into negative thoughts or beliefs or negative self-talk or an overactive mind, that can really affect your cycle. And energetically, and I believe we don't talk about this enough, taking on, like, understanding our energetic boundaries, taking on other people's stuff. You know, I know some of you here will probably really resonate with this, that people talk and share their stuff and they with you when they're really upset, and they kind of go skipping off, and afterwards you feel really tired and drained. Well, that energy's got to go somewhere, and it can really come out in your cycle. Again, blocks in these energy centers. So if you imagine that your pelvis area is a bowl, and your womb with these hormones sits in this bowl. But these bowls in women can act as dumping grounds. We may be storing stuff from this lifetime, previous lifetimes, you know, all this stuff around being a woman. It doesn't take much to go back in history to see where there's a lot of challenges. And we can store a lot of emotions in this pelvic area. Grief, our identity to being a woman can be in here. We can hoard stuff into our pelvic bowl, and it can create a lot of stagnation. And we have a specific energy center in here called the sacral chakra, and this can get really clogged down. And this is so related to like our sense of feeling enough. It's really linked in with our vitality. It's really linked in with our relationships to other people. So you can really see how much physically, emotionally, mentally, energetically can all arrive through our cycles. And yet our education has been, well, mine was, here's a tampon, here's Plu liquid, once a month you'll bleed. Oh, by the way, don't get pregnant. And that was kind of, oh yeah, and adverts that said, when you get your bleed, wear white hot pants and go roller skating. You know, you kind of go, this doesn't make any sense, because I don't feel like doing that at the time of the month. And so that started, and I see this for a number of people, a conversation that went on with me going, is there something wrong with me that I don't want to be up and about and working in that way of white hot pants and, you know, going for it at that time of the month? Actually, I feel more like I want to just step back from the world. Is that because I'm not good enough? Is that because I'm lacking something? And so we can start to, when we haven't got the right information and education, we can start to create our own stories. And sadly, they tend to not be very kind stories to ourselves. And they tend to not be overly compassionate. Brilliant for negative self-talk, but not particularly great for cheerleading ourselves. And also you can see from what I've just spoken about how varied things can be that start to influence and affect our monthly cycles, which is why Karen from down the road can take apple cider vinegar and her period problems disappear, whereas Jane actually takes the apple cider vinegar and it does nothing to support her and how she feels and her experience of a monthly cycle, because actually she's got an issue in another place, in another area. So this is why it's really important to understand you and to get curious about you. So, where are we at? How are you doing? I'm aware we've gone quite sciencey. I'm aware that we've just given you a lot of information. And I'm going to start now bringing it into you. But have you any questions before I continue on that particular bit? Does that make sense? Good. Okie dokie. So now let's make this about you. Cool. Perfect sense. Excellent. So let's start bringing it in to you, lovelies. Let's start with why you're here. What is your reason for signing up to this webinar today? What's your intention? What would you like to get out of today? So, for example, it might be that you have crippling period pains. It might be that your PMT is off the charts and you feel like you're losing it each month. Or it might be that actually you want a way to feel more balanced, you know, get to understand yourself a little bit better. Have a little feel into this over the next moment or two and just connect in with, you know, what's your intention from today. And do feel free to share in the chat box if you'd like to. And it's okay as well if you're not entirely sure. Just something made you go, oh, I want to be on this call. That's okay too. One of the things that I always listen to is when something calls you, it's because usually your body has a level of wisdom that's gone, yeah, I need me a piece of that, and starts to bring you into alignment with this. Emotions, create TV adverts, snap at the slightest thing. Okay, so yeah, period not so much of an issue, but the hormones, yeah. So that's, is there a particular time that your hormones are you aware of a particular time in your cycle that your hormones where you tend to feel more emotionally, sort of that emotional exaggeration, more sensitive? Or at the moment, does it feel like it's all the time, or you're not entirely sure? I'd be really curious about that. Yeah, so around the time of ovulation, start to feel a little bit more fuzzy brain, out of kilter, aching bones, sluggish, and that can go on for quite some time. Yeah. Okay, and then looking at the diagram from ovulation onwards. Okay, so you can already hear that there's some really big things that can start to come up where you start to feel much more sluggish in your energy, you start to feel more emotionally sensitive, you start to feel a bit more imbalanced, out of balance, and that can be lots of mystery around that. Okay, and then you've got yeah, crippling pains and completely out for a day with everything and any kind of symptoms, exhaustion, migraines, cramps. Oh, sometimes isn't it like our bodies just throw everything at us? Skin gets really dry when it starts to. Yeah, okay. Yeah, feel like I've been hit by a bus. Oh yeah, totally. Okay, so again, and there'd be lots of different I mean, you can see, yeah, dry skin. You can see from these comments, nodding emoji, yeah, like these are really big deals and yet we're not taught about them. So, okay, good. Thank you. Thank you for sharing, ladies. So what I want you to now start to connect with is to really tune into, we've already started some of that, but really tune into what are the things that are currently causing you stress in your cycle right now. So it might be around the pain, it might be around the PMT or hot flushes even. You know, what are the real things that you're like, oh, this stresses me out. Each month I have to deal with this, and it affects my confidence. It affects, you know, how I fear how I show up in my business. Although we'll come on to that in a moment. But, you know, just really anchor in, what are some of the things that are really causing you stress right about now? And have a little think. If it's that you suffer with exhaustion, for example, what is it about that that's stressful? Is it that you run your own business and you're like, oh, I can't afford to have days off? Or is it that, yeah, okay, the stress is when I have to work and focus on writing reports and have fuzzy brain, can't focus. Okay, hear you with that. Brilliant. So now what I want you to do is to write down all the things, emotions, sex drive, need, feel like causing further problems when I'm a needy, teary mess, yet don't want comfort from my husband. Oh, our hormones are horrible sometimes, aren't they? When it collides with important dates, it collides with our first yoga teacher training dates. I hear ya. I hear ya. Yeah, nodding emotions, nodding emoji. Okay, so now let's come out of your cycle and start to think about work. So it's specifically to work. You might relate this back to your cycle, but really connect in right now. What are some of the things that are stressing you out in work or business, or your career? So again, just jot down a couple of things that are kind of making you go around work right now. It might be, yeah, that. So for example, I know work for me at the moment is amazing, but I'm also really aware of having a lot on. I'm up leveling my business, I'm growing, I'm doing things like these webinars that I've never done before, apart from the last few weeks. So, you know, there's a lot going on for me work-wise right now. And whilst it's great, it's also a bit challenging. I'm also aware we're in the middle of a pandemic, and that can be really affecting work. Yeah, okay. Want to work at the moment and entitled to a little help. Want to work being prevented. Okay, constantly a laptop, desk job, all brain focused. Okay. Yeah, having to be online, on social media and run the business. Full on at the moment, isn't it? You know, there's so many different things to be considering around work. Okay, so now I want you to write down all the things that are stressing you about your home or private life. So again, just starting to connect with the things that are stressing you out. So if, you know, it could be a bigger picture of things like a fertility journey or not, or it might be having a partner or not, or it might be friendships, or feeling really unmotivated to do things, and just beginning to call some of this up. So just little things like I'm aware of for me right now, taking on other people's energy more easily. Sex drive disappeared. Yeah, there's a lot going on at the moment in terms of our personal lives. You know, as we're recording this, we are in the middle of a global pandemic. There is lots of really heightened emotions, and not just ours, but globally there's a lot going on. Yeah, missing hugs. Yeah, it was my mum's 70th a few weeks ago, and we should have all been together, and we didn't. We did it online, but it's not the same, is it? Okay. And now I want you to connect with this idea of anything that may be stressing you from the past, from your past. Now, this might be past like a week ago, having a conversation with a work colleague that you just thought, ugh. Or it might be that you're feeling guilty about a particular conversation, perhaps last sort of hormone imbalance. Feel guilty as to how you responded or reacted at the time. It might be bigger, where you're thinking back to, you know, being triggered to think about childhood when you were at school, perhaps times when maybe even just how you were, you know, if you experienced heavy periods or period pain at school, how that may have showed up for you. Or just in general, this might be something that just you're holding on to some stuff from the past. And now I invite you to connect with anything that you might be holding on from the past, but also any future decisions that you've got, not knowing how to speak up sometimes. That is such a key issue in terms of with your cycle, not knowing how to speak up sometimes. Even as we speak, I can feel my voice here. Okay. So again, holding on to just thinking of some of those things from the past, now start to think about the future, the next week, 2 weeks, month, 6 months. Is there anything that you've got, any decisions to make or anything that's coming up that may be stressing you out? Scared of being left alone for long periods of time again? Yeah. Reconnecting with people due to the pandemic, but they're from previous jobs that hold negative memories. Yeah, so there's a kind of past and future as they meet there. Bittersweet. Yeah. Okay. And how to redirect your energy with the changes in running a business. Yeah, you know, when you have a business during this time, we've got huge amounts of potential redirection. You know, we're going to maybe be asked to show up in a different way. And that all takes a lot of energy. So everything that you shared, ladies, will be having an impact on your cycle. Everything that you shared will be having an impact on your hormones. Your hormones, your periods are bigger than just taking a supplement. Because look at what you're holding, look at what you're dealing with. These are big things. And when you look at that bowl that I spoke about before, there's a lot going on that you're holding. All your worries, all your hopes, all your dreams, all your fears, all your past memories, all your fears of the future. So this work is not just this simple, sadly, it's not just this simple, I take this blue pill and ta-da, I feel better, nothing's ever an issue again. It's actually about excavating what's contributing for you these imbalances. And our body has the most amazing way of feeding back to us to say, hey, I'm not okay. And it does that through things like PMT, and it does that through period pains, and it does that through giving us these spaces where we start to feel really overwhelmed where we start to feel very foggy-headed, and you know, can feel like there's so much going on. So it can either show up as like just feelings, or it can show up like just having no energy. It can show up mentally as being very overstimulated. And so I really want you to take a moment and just reflect back on your list, all the things that I've got you to explore. And whilst you do this, I want you to hold these 2 front points. These are called your emotional stress release points, and they sit on your forehead. They're sort of like the little nodules that stick out, is the best way I can describe it. Do you like my technical description there? So if you can either place your hand over your forehead or just very lightly touch these with your hands. And begin to start taking some really deep breaths. And if you're feeling a little overwhelmed with these lists that you've created, and then think, my goodness, what on earth do I do with any of this? That's why we're here today. We're starting that excavation. We're starting that journey within. But you've got to know what you're dealing with. So just holding these points, like I can feel mine are really, really active right now. And I've got the sense that all of you as well, there's a lot going on here. Because there is. And as women, yeah, okay. Fears and memories related to womb experiences and situation. Yeah. So this is deep work. I can feel my throat actually. Okay, so I want you to just keep holding these points and breathing. Keep breathing deeply. So I'm going to encourage you to start breathing down to your seat. Breathe, breathe, breathe. It's one of you will know who I'm talking about here, but one of my yoga teachers, like when you're in some of these crazy poses and you're like, I've got nothing, this is bringing up everything for me. She's like, breathe, 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 breathe. And our breath is so powerful in this. You're doing amazingly. Well done. Good. Okay. So, great work. Now I want to start clearing some of this emotional charge around this. I'm going to take you through a process called EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique. What we're going to do is just start taking the charge, bring the energy down a little bit, start taking the charge of all of this that you're holding. So I'm going to begin tapping certain parts of my body and I want you to follow. I'm going to say some statements. Now these are generic statements and I encourage you to repeat them whilst tapping these points that I'll show you. But likewise, if as we go through this, you feel like there's some other points that have come up or other things that you would like to say, then do. Okay, so beginning by just gently tapping the outside of your hand. Good. Even though I can see just how much I'm holding, just how much may be going into my monthly cycle. But I don't know what to do with any of this. It can actually leave me feeling a bit overwhelmed. I deeply and completely love myself. And then onto your head, crown of your head. Even though I judge myself for how my body is each month, or how I feel, or my emotions, or the pain I have, when I feel like I can't show up in the world in the way how I want to, or should do. I deeply and completely love myself. And then tapping on your third eye. Even though I can get so stressed out by all of this, I deeply and completely love myself. And then onto the corner of your eyes. Even though I have so much to think about, it's horrible when I can't think straight and clearly, and I can't get to do what it is that I want to do or feel I should be doing. I deeply and completely love myself. And then underneath your eyes, even though I worry that I'll never be fixed, I'll never get this fixed, I'll always be this way, I deeply and completely love myself. And then under your nose, even though I may feel really exhausted at times, I feel so guilty if I take time out to rest. I feel so guilty if I take time out for me. I deeply and completely love myself. Even though I feel like every time I've got a foggy head, or every time I cry watching TV, or every time I feel so angry at my partner, or every time I experience pain, or every time I'm exhausted, somehow I feel like that's because I'm not enough. I deeply and completely love myself. And then you're just going to tap your collarbones, even though I can see how much is now stressing me out. I worry what I should be doing about it, how I can help myself. And that maybe I don't know what to do. I deeply and completely love myself. And then tapping, you're kind of going down to the side of your body, under your armpit. Even though I am holding on, some of this is time to let go. But I don't know how. I deeply and completely love myself. Okay. Just begin to shake that out. Good. Whew. This work isn't for the faint-hearted. You're doing amazingly. Well done. And just placing your left hand over your heart and your right hand over the top, and just taking some really nourishing deep breaths in and out. And in and out. Marvelous. Now I'm going to invite you to go on a little journey. And to do this, if you have any essential oils, I invite you to work with one that you feel called to. If you don't have any essential oils available, that's okay too. Today, I'm going to be working with the oil geranium. So incredibly beautiful. And be aware, we are sharing the space here. So this is going to be, as I'm working with this, it's also going to be helpful for you and where you're at. So even if you don't have an essential oil or have geranium, know that this oil that helps to really build trust again and open-heartedness, and it's a deeply feminine energy in this bottle, that actually you will be receiving the benefits of her generous support as we continue to shift some of this stuff. Okay. So geranium, I could talk a little bit more about the oils at the end, but geranium is so powerful whenever you're doing any room work. Ginger for empowerment. Oh yes, I love ginger. Absolutely love ginger. That would be another really, really great one. Provides a real kick. So, okay, so if you have an essential oil, just put a drop in your hand, in the palm of your hands. Rub your hands together. If you don't, you can just continue to place your left hand on your heart and your right hand on your womb space, taking some really nice deep inhalations in and out, and either begin to lower your gaze or close your eyes and taking nice deep breaths in and out and in and out. Amazing. And if you haven't already, just begin to place your left hand on your heart and your right hand on your womb, and allow your breath to return back to however feels comfortable for you, whatever feels most comforting, nurturing, and nourishing for you right now. I invite you to imagine seeing yourself in the most glorious field. It's a meadow filled with the most beautiful meadow flowers. The sun is shining and you are safe. You know where you are. This feels so familiar to you. You're completely at ease. Perhaps free. Maybe you're doing a bit of skipping or running or just gently walking through the meadow. And now I encourage you to see a path in front of you. You begin to follow this path as you walk through your meadow, aware of hearing the birds tweeting in the background, perhaps the buzz of a bumblebee as it goes past, the gentle breeze against your body. And as you begin to continue down the path, begin to notice that actually you're up high. And as you look down, you realize you're at the top of a big hill, almost a cliff, but you're totally safe. You look down and you see a beach. And on that beach, you're being gently called to this being that you feel curious about. Feels totally safe. In fact, you're drawn to her. So as you get closer to the edge, you begin to perceive that there's a series of steps that are going to take you down from your meadow. You begin to journey down the side of this big hill, down towards the beach. And as you begin your journey down, you're just aware of that sensation of being called deeper and deeper down. You're aware of the sea, so calm, so beautiful. The sunlight is radiating and reflecting off of its crystal blue waters. And as you begin to travel further and further down the stairs, begin to see this being looking so incredibly beautiful. She's showing you her. As you begin to travel further down, you reach the sand. You wave hello to this beautiful being. And you begin to make your way over, treading, feeling your footprints, your feet against the beautiful sand. Such a glorious day. And as you begin to get closer to this beautiful being, you realize that she's holding a box. Such a gorgeous ornate box. So pretty, so jeweled. And as you get closer to her, you start to feel a connection to her. She feels familiar. And you realize she's smiling at you as she holds out this box for you. This is her gift. She wishes to share with you. And as you connect with her, as you approach, gratefully receive the box from her. She encourages you to open the box. And inside, you see a message. This is her message. This is her gift for you. It may just be an object. It may be something written down. It may just be something that you're aware of and knowing. Don't overthink it. Just receive it for what it is. Bring her message into you. Allow yourself to connect with what she has to share. Taking a really beautiful deep breath in. And out. Wonderful. And now, as you turn to look at her, thank her for her gift. Express your gratitude and your love and appreciation for her. As you hand back the box, knowing that you've received her gift, thank her so much for showing up today. And know that you will meet again very, very soon. As you say goodbye, you begin to journey back over the sand. You begin to see the steps ahead of you as you begin to take those steps, going up, up, up. And you're journeying up through the steps with ease, coming back up towards the meadow, back up into the sunshine, perhaps giving one last wave over your shoulder. You begin to come up, back to the meadow, and begin to walk along the path that takes you back to where you began. Beautiful. And then when you're ready, just turn your face up to face the sunshine. And begin to just wiggle your fingers and toes. Perhaps beginning to move your body, your hands, your arms. And when you feel ready, beginning to open your eyes. And taking a nice big swig of water. Amazing. Well done. If you feel like you would like to share any of your gifts, any of the words of wisdom that came up, or any of the offerings, do feel free to share. No, you don't have to as well. I appreciate that that's a very deep personal gift. The message was, you are limitless. She told me you'll be okay. Oh, I've got goosebumps. It's almost bringing tears to my eyes. I feel really emotional. My message was, I love you. Wow. My gift, oh, was the figure of that one that you post photos of. She's here. Is it this one? So this is a goddess, and I received her, I got her in Glastonbury. And if you're ever curious about really connecting in with the divine feminine, Glastonbury is an incredibly special place to go. And she called to me. There's a number of, this is handmade by a local artist, and there's a number of statues that you can get that are over Glastonbury Way. And she's beautiful, isn't she? And they're classed, they get called goddesses. And whenever I do this type of work, well, in fact, she's always with me. She's always in my room. But she's very, very powerful at connecting in with the feminine, which is ultimately what this is. And that wise woman within all of us. She's very special. Yeah. And maybe once, all of this passes, I'm really being called to look at organising a retreat over there. There's something called the goddess. The goddess. Oh, it escapes my name now, but there's a place where the divine feminine can go. I'll remember it after this and I'll pop it in the chat. Okay, so now just what I'd like you to do is just take a moment and place your hand over your heart and connect back in with the list. All these things that you wrote. And your original intention when you came to join this morning's webinar. How does it feel now? And just, I invite you to just take a moment. I probably guarantee it feels a little bit lighter, a little less charged, calmer, that sort of thing. Calm, nourished. Yeah, that word nourished, so beautiful. And I want you to take a moment to think about, or just, is there something that as you go through your days, you leave here, you leave this space, something that you could do or tell yourself to help connect back in with this state of being? Almost like a little reminder of your gifts. I love you, you'll be okay, you're limitless. And that, just take a moment to think about that one thing that you may say or do to help remind you of this feeling right now. Good. Amazing. And then going on from today, as we begin to wrap up, you can see through your experiences and what we shared today that your cycle is so much more than just this one-dimensional being, this act that happens each month. There's so many layers to it. There's so much to it that will all have an impact and will all show up in your cycle. So with that in mind, I'm going to share like 5 things that can be really super helpful in supporting you throughout the month. So it's such a big thing, but firstly, take time to rest. If your body is exhausted, look at the evidence of what she's been carrying and is trying to process. Give her that time. Yes, there are times it will clash with what you've got to do. And let's be honest, you know, some of those times you'll have to step up and kind of suck it up. But there are other times where you can plan around this. So use that time to rest and rejuvenate. Chart your cycle. That would be my second tip. I will be doing more work. I'll share with this in a moment, but start to just jot down what day of your cycle you're on. Get to connect with, you know, I showed you that those hormones as they travel throughout the month. Get to learn where you are in your cycle. You know, I know, for example, day 24 is not usually a good day in my cycle for me. That's where I'm going to generally be really tense. But day 10, I'm on fire. So chart your cycle. There is a whole host of supplements. Yeah, apps, period trackers, really, really helpful. You know, most of us are attached to our phones, so they're great. There's another one, hormone horoscope, I find is brilliant. And it also gives you a bit of a breakdown each day by what's going on hormonally, so what you can expect to experience. That if you're experiencing a lot of becoming unstable in the second half of your cycle, or experiencing a lot of period pains, magnesium, you know, if there's one suggestion, and when I work with my clients, there's a whole sort of program that can come out with this, but magnesium for women is such a good all-rounder for helping create that calmer tonic within and helping to reduce cramps, reduce those hormone roller coasters that can happen. So thoroughly recommend magnesium. Although there's loads more, that's a really good place to start. And journal. Look at what started to come up when you made time to connect. Get it out your head, get it out your heart, get it off of your plate, share it. You haven't got to do all of this yourself. And I find journaling is that beautiful way of being able to see the noise that's in my head, and so therefore I get the opportunity to be able to problem solve a lot easier with greater clarity, because I can see what can be looped. Really good for that. And then finally, I know some of you are involved with essential oils, but they really are incredible for you and your cycle. As I already mentioned, geranium is a brilliant one. It's a hormone balancer, and is incredibly feminine and helps to encourage that love and trust again, which, you know, sometimes life can really upset that balance. Another blend by doTERRA is the blend Balance. It's exactly what it says on the tin. Brilliant throughout the month. And then in particular for cramps and some of, again, hormonal issues, Clary Calm can be really, really good. Clary Sage is really, really good for helping with cramps, sort of those physical symptoms. And there is another blend that I don't have here because I lent it out to a friend, and that's Clary Calm. That's a doTERRA one, and that's brilliant. It blends lots of the different oils that you can either put on your womb space or around your ovaries, which is the inside of your ankle, reflects to that. And that's really good for helping with the tension that you can experience throughout the month, but also then with any cramps. Okay. So that starts to bring everything to a close. So does it help with physical symptoms, the bone aching too, or just cramps? I would suggest try it, see how you get on. There may be other stuff that's going on. Certainly the magnesium, I think, will be really super helpful for you in terms of that sort of bone aching. And then in terms of the oils, I think I would suggest start with something like Clary Calm, but also then start to get curious. Remember, look at all the things that are contributing to imbalances showing up within the body. So this is a time to start getting curious. Definitely start magnesium. Probably an omega-3 would be great as well. And then look at, find oils that are going to help support you, that feel good. And when you have an oil, like it lands with you. Magnesium every day or just during cycle? Every day. You want to be taking this, because I think I read something like 90% of the population in the Western world are magnesium deficient of some sort in our diet. And it is something, I showed you a book via Instagram, the Period Repair Manual. It is such a go-to, probably the #1 supplement for anything to do with hormone imbalances within women. So magnesium every day, between 300 to 600 mg. And my favorite, I don't know if I just showed you this. This is, for me, this has been one of the most effective brands. There's lots of different types of magnesium on the market, lots of different brands, but this is one that I take and have found it to be effective, and I've shared it with my clients, and it's made really significant difference to them too. But remember, we're all different. Get curious, see, try things out. Amazing. Any more questions? And I will, if this work has really resonated with you today, I will be launching a 5 weeks, I had to pick one book for us to buy. Depends what you want. If you want a book that's going to be like a big sister book, that's going to help show you sort of how to work with your cycle and the energy of it, maybe essential oils, chakras, that side of things, then that would be a different book. As if you want something more sort of prescriptive around, these are the physical symptoms I have and I want to know physically what I can take. Keep an eye on my Insta feed, because my Insta feed, I am sharing about some of the books. So if you want quite categoric, these are some of the symptoms and I want to know physically what I can take, this is a brilliant book, my go-to book for myself and for all clients. So yeah, otherwise keep a lookout and I'll be sharing other books that have got different resources, and you're most welcome. I'm aware of the time. So thank you. Thank you, Tara. Really great session again. Thank you for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure and I've loved it. I've really loved being able to share today with you. You're most welcome, my love. And like I say, if you're really curious about this, I'm going to be starting to do a deeper dive for women who are curious and want to understand more about like the energetic and the emotions and what you're holding within your room space, and then how to be working with that to help clear and shift, so you really form a deeper connection with your heart and with your room space. So keep a lookout for that. Let today, oh, you're most welcome, really interesting and emotional. We've done energy work, we've stirred stuff up that may or may not have been touched for a very long time. So go gently with yourself. Water, nature, allow yourself to cry if you want to, allow yourself to journal. This is deep work. And also celebrate yourself. You've done this. Well done. So from my heart to yours, keep a lookout. I will be sharing the follow-up stuff. But now, nourish, nurture, support. Those 3 things. You deserve them. Give yourself those things. And thank you for sharing so openly and honestly. So much love to you all. Take care. And if you need me, message me. Okay. Bye bye, beautiful ladies. Bye.